Alright, so here I want to generate some random letters. In Excel, there is a function called char. Now this function actually returns a specific character based on the number you specify in the function. So if you want to get a alphabet, that is a letter, you can use 65. So when you use 65, it returns A in the capital letter, so capital A. And if you specify 97, it returns a small a. So its range of alphabets is 65 to 90 for capital letters, and 97 to 122 for lower letters. So if I want to generate a random letter, I can use the rand between function and character function to get a random letter. So how will I use it? I'll enter this char function, and in this function I'll use the rand between, basically the rand between function, and for the bottom I'll specify 65 and I will specify 90 for the top. So this way this rand between function will return a random number between 65 to 90, and the char function, the char function, will convert that number into the alphabet. Now the moment I hit enter, it returns T. So it's a random character, random letter based on a random number. And if I want to get a letter, an alphabet in small letters, I'll change the range from 197 to 122. Now the moment I hit enter, it returns P in small letters. So in this way you can combine char and rand between function to generate a random letter in Excel. Alright, so here I have a number in the cell A1 and I want to calculate the square root for this number. So for this I'll use the sqrt function and refer to the cell A1 where I have the number, and then enter the closing parenthesis, and in the end I'll hit enter. So this is the easiest way to calculate square root for a number in Excel. Alright, so here I have few numbers in the column A and I want to add leading zeros to this number. So what I want to have 7 digits with a number. So if a number is of 2 digits, I want the rest of the digits is 0. So for this I'll use the text function, and then I'll refer to the number, and after that for format I'll specify 7 zeros. So as I said, if a number is of 1 digit, the rest of the 6 digits will be 0. So the moment I hit enter, it gives me 1 with 6 zeros in the leading. Now I'll drag this formula, and in this way I have a 0 with each number according to the digits of the number. Alright, so here I have a list of dates in the column A and I want to get quarter for each of these dates. So for this I'll use a combination of two functions, that is choose and month. So here I'll enter choose and then month. So for month I'll refer to the date for which I want to get the quarter, and for choose, for rest of the arguments of the choose, I'll create a index where I will enter 1 1 1 . Now this index from 1 to 4 is basically the quarters of each month out of all the 12 months. So first January to March we have 1, that is a quarter 1, and for April to June we have quarter 2, and for July to September we have 3, and for October to December we have 4. So this way, when the month function returns a number of the month. Choose will give you the quarter against that month number. So now if I hit enter, it returns 1. And if I drag this formula to rest of the dates, it gives the quarter respectively for that particular month. And I can also add a alphabet Q before the number. I'll simply use the ampersand sign here and hit enter. So this is how I can get quarter from a particular date. Now if I want to get quarters according to the financial year instead of the normal January to December year, I simply need to change the index that I have in the formula. So here, starting from 1 to 4, I'll use an index where I'm starting from 4. So here from January to March I have 4, and April to June I have 1, and July to September I have 2, and for October to December I have 3. So the moment I hit enter, it returns 4 for January to March, and then April to June, and July to September, and October to December. So this is the easiest way to get quarter from a particular date. And here I have a value in the cell A1, and I want to round this value to the nearest thousands. So for this, I'll use the simple round function and refer to the number. And as I want to round it to the nearest thousand, that is with 3 zeros, so I'll use -3 here, and I'll close the function. So I have the number and -3, and the moment I hit enter, it returns the number 1 2 3 4 5 7, and after that I have 3 zeros. So it's basically rounding up because the last value that I have is 789, which is closest to the upward thousand. So if I have a value which is downwards, for example, if I have here 489 instead of 789, so it will round it to 6000, which is the nearest thousand to this number. So you need to use -3 in the number digit argument to round it to the nearest, and if you want to round it to nearest 100, so in that case you just need to use the same function, and instead of using -3, you can use -2, and it will round it to the nearest 100. And in the same way, you can use -1 if you want to round it to the nearest 10. So for this, I'll use a simple function, that is count A, and the moment I specify the range and close the parenthesis and hit enter, it returns 6. So this is the count of cells in the range A1 to A10 where I have a value. So 6 cells with a value. Now apart from this, there is one more function that you can use, and that's count if. So in count if, I'll specify the range, and after that I'll specify a criteria. So criteria will be not equals to, and after that I'll specify a ampersand, not equals to blank. So this tells Excel that I'm looking for the cells, I'm trying to count the cells which are not equals to a blank cell, a blank value. Now the moment I hit enter, it returns 6. Now when you're using COUNTIF function, you can also specify the criteria just by using the not equals to sign. You don't need to specify the blank value along with it, and it will give you the same count. So these two methods are interchangeable. You can use them the way you want. Now the real thing is, if in this range where I have 6 non-blank cells, if I enter a space, if somehow you have a space which is which is an invisible space that you cannot see until you edit a cell, the moment you enter this invisible space, the count of the non-blank cells will change. So in that case, you will not be able to conclude the actual number of non-blank cells. Now in that case, I need to use the COUNTIFs function, and here I will use two different criteria. So first I'll specify the range, and again I'll use the not equals sign. And in the second criteria, let me specify the range again. Now in the second criteria, I will tell this function that also not to count cells where I have a blank. So for this, I'll again specify the not equals, and apart from that, I will combine it with a blank value. So the first criteria tells to not to count cells which are blank, and the second criteria tells and also not to count the cells which have a blank space. So let me enter a blank space here, a normal space basically. And now the moment I enter the parentheses and hit enter, it returns 6, which are the actual count of non-blank cells in the range A1 to A10. So here I have few values in the range A1 to A10, and some of the cells are blank, and I want to count that how many cells are blank here. So for this, I'll use function count blank, and I'll specify the range, that is A1 to A10, and hit enter. So it says 4, and here I have 4 cells which are blank. Now apart from that, I can also use the COUNTIF function, and for this I need to specify the range in the first argument, and then I need to specify the equal sign and enclose it in double quotation marks, and after that I'll enter the closing parenthesis. So this criteria tells Excel to count the cells where there is no value, so equals nothing. So I'm using the equal sign, but I'm not specifying any value. So the moment I hit enter, it returns 4, that is the count of blank cells from the range. So here I have few values in the column A, and I want to sum values that are below 25. So for this, I'll use the SUMIF function, and for the first argument, that is range, I'll specify the range in which I want to look up for the criteria. And mind you, this is the same list of values from where I want to sum the values. So criteria and the values where I want to sum is the same range. So I'll specify A2 to A13, and after that I'll specify criteria using a lower than operator. So for this, I'll enter the lower than operator, and I'll specify the number, that is 25, and I'll enclose them in double quotation marks. And after that, there is one more argument, that is sum range, which I don't need to define because I already have the range from where I want to sum the value. So I'll just enter the closing parenthesis and hit enter. So it gives me 1, 1, 2, which is the sum of all the values which are below 25. And if I want to include 25 into this criteria, I'll simply use an equal sign as well. And now if I enter if I add a 25 value in this list, it will include that 25 in the criteria. And you can also use a criteria value from a range instead of directly entering it into the formula. So I'll change the criteria a little bit from here, and I'll enter. So basically I will refer to a cell, and now in this cell I will specify the number which I want to use as the criterion. All right, so here we will understand the concept of 3D reference, the 3D range. So 3D range is basically a range of multiple sheets. So if you see, I have this value 100 in the cell A1, and I have 5 different sheets here. So in each sheet, the value in the cell A1 is 100, and I want to refer to all the 5 sheets in a single a formula or a function. So for this, I'll create a range of the sheets and then refer to the cell A1. So I'll enter the simple sum function, and here I will create a range of the sheets. So I'll enter sheet 1 and then a colon, the way we create a range of cells basically. And after that, I will specify the sheet 5. So the range is from sheet 1 to sheet 5, and after that I need to enter an exclamation sign, and after that I will specify the cell to which I want to refer. And if you want to refer to an entire range, you can simply go and specify the range this way. So it's referring to the cell A1 to A5 in each of the sheet that we have in this range of sheets. So sheet 1 to sheet 5, but right now I just want the cell A1, and now I will close this function and hit enter. So it should give me the sum of all the cell A1 in all the sheets. So cell A1 from all the 5 sheets. And the moment I hit enter, it gives me 500. So we have this 3D range, a range of sheets. So here I have few values in the column A, and I want to count the cells which have text values. So I want to ignore the numbers, and I also want to ignore the Boolean values that are true and false. So basically I have 3 cells here that have text values, but I want to count these cells with a formula. So for this, I'll use the COUNTIF function, and then I'll refer to the range, and in the criteria I will use an asterisk sign and enclose it with double quotation marks, and after that I'll enter a closing parenthesis and hit enter. So it gives me 3 in the result. That is the count of the cells with actual text value. So if somehow you have a space, it will also count that space as a text value, but here I want to ignore that space. I just want to have actual number of cells which have text value. So for this, I'll little bit mold my formula. So I'll simply use COUNTIFs here. Instead of COUNTIF, I'll use COUNTIFs. So I'll again refer to the range, and I'll use asterisk here in the same way, and I'll create a one more criteria with the same range, and here I will create a not equal value with a space. So I'm telling my formula to not to count a cell which have a space. And now if I hit enter, it returns 6. So when I hit enter, it returns 3, which is the actual number of cells with text values. Now here one more point, why I'm using asterisk to count the text values. So when you use asterisk as a criteria, it ignores the numbers and Boolean values that we have here, true and false. It only gives you the cells which have textual values as a format.